Part 2 ending of this type of situation, Part 1 down below. Strange update. So, the divorce is ongoing, and she left the house and is living with a friend who happens to be just a friend. We have been basically no contact. Only contact is for financial issues, like bills. Starting Saturday night, I get a phone call from her stating that she made a huge mistake and wants to work on us and save our marriage. Well, I have to say, if she asked for $1 million, I would have been less surprised than her stating she wants to get back together. I asked her why now, and her only comment is that she missed us and she made stupid mistakes. I asked her where was her friend and she just diverted the question. So, I came back here to ask what the hell is going on. I don't want to get back together, but she has a way of hitting the right buttons with me. It's confusing, especially since she will not say why she really is acting this way. I was content in my marriage ending and coming to some terms with moving on, but this was like a sucker punch in the gut. I just don't know why now. I am at a disadvantage. Several weeks ago, we had a huge thunder and rainstorm and the power went out. As I was getting a flashlight, I tripped over the dog and broke my ankle and shoulder blade. I needed surgery and have been laid up since then. She must have found out because she came over to the house, but could not get in, changed all the locks and codes. So, she was banging on the windows, and seeing me in my recliner, she yelled at me to open the door. I admit, I was pissed and flipped her off. I guess she got the point and left. I am sticking to NC, but now she knows I am non-mobile. I feel she is just going to stalk me. I guess my new concern is if she is going to go total demented and where she might pop up. She is not violent, far from it, but this is a new personality trait I have not seen before. It is totally unexpected. If she wasn't a cheating bee, I would almost be impressed with her conviction. But I know it is all an act. I called my attorney and he said to record video and audio if I can for future hearings. I should also mention that the divorce was going quite well, but she must have hired an attorney because she is going full board against me now. I tried to avoid the pain pills for a while, but you get to a point that you need some relief. I am staying focused even though I feel like I am in Alice in Wonderland with this new revelation of hers. A good friend of mine laid it out for me. He said that I should try to think of my life 5 or 10 years from now and look at the options. If you stay with her, can you see yourself trusting her completely, or will there still be doubts because of her affair? Or if you divorce, do you see your life without her acceptable and maybe with someone else? I thought about this for several weeks and I just will always think about her cheating, and I don't think this will be acceptable to me. So, the divorce train is still rolling down the tracks. Well, I need some seriously good advice right now. I told my attorney what was happening and all he could say was oh no. I think I mentioned that my wife hired an attorney, who must have mentioned that I cannot kick her out of our house. So, she is moving in. When she left, I changed the locks and codes in the house. She cannot touch the house in the divorce, but she can live in it. My questions are, what am I going to do? I'm not very ambulatory right now and she is going to be here. My attorney is looking for something in the statutes, but she is coming soon. Well, I took the bull by the horns and told her to come over so we can talk about moving in and where her mind is. I always prefer to talk to people face to face instead of by text, phone and emails. Training has told me that watching people's facial features and body motions can reveal a lot regarding truthfulness. So, she comes over all bubbly and bouncy, throwing I love yous all over the place. She tries to give me a kiss and she only met the paper I was holding to block her face. She looked shocked. So, I said that if the law says you can come back into my house, there are rules to follow. 1. The divorce is going to happen, no matter what you're planning to do. 2. My bedroom, master bedroom, and office are my space and you are not entitled to enter. The friend put locks on both rooms. 3. You are required to pay 1/2 of the bills. 4. All credit cards have been canceled. If you want one, go get one in your name. 5. No friends or potential lovers, boyfriends or whatever are allowed. 6. You must buy and cook your own food. I have my own. 7. I am selling the car you are driving, so you might want to look for another. At this point she just started crying and walked out of the house. I yelled at her to take her dog, but she appeared not to hear me. So, I know she wants me to cave and she can come back like nothing happened. Other than that, I don't know what her next move may be. Also, I took my sports car and it is now parked in a colleague's garage. It is still hard to play hardball because she still pulls on some of my heartstrings, but history is history and you can never totally let it go. Good Lord, this is so tiring. A quick update. She has moved in. Her father and brothers were there for her protection, I guess. I really don't know why they showed up. If they thought she might be unsafe, why have her move in? I think they came as muscle so I would stop harassing my wife with my rules and attitude. So, they all pile out of their garbage minivan and come into the house like it was theirs. Well, they immediately were introduced to my best friend and lawyer sitting on the couch next to me. Her father stated to me after the introduction, attorney, so you are really going through with it. This is going to be unbearable. Her brothers were cussing me under their breaths, which I of course heard. My friend kept looking at me to see if I would respond, but I kept my cool. I just keep remembering that she will be out of my life soon and this is a temporary setback. So, after everyone left, she turned on the waterworks pleading to work it out. I just turned on my recorder and held it up to her, which I have to admit she didn't like. I told her every conversation we have will be recorded for my protection and hers. I have to say that it had the intended effect. She stomped off down to her room and slammed the door. The friend who is renting a room from me till he finds a new place is moving in tomorrow. I have not told her yet. I have to admit that I am feeling a high level of anxiety not knowing her next move. I just want everyone to go away so I can relax and rethink my new life goals and priorities. I caved a little and let her drive my car. She has been driving till I get on my feet or the D goes through. I really don't want her to lose her job at this time. I just got a boot for my ankle so I am somewhat mobile. Anything to get away from this nightmare. I still feel under the current living conditions that I am treading water with no land in sight. She is so suffocating. She did have the nerve to try to push her decision to cheat on what I have not done in our marriage, and how she felt alone in our communication and relationship. I asked her for examples and she brought up our last vacation to Costa Rica where I did not give her enough attention while at dinner. I remember replying that I did take her to CR and other places and counties every year of our marriage, and the non-attention at dinner was because she was so drunk that nobody at the table wanted to interact with her. She didn't remember those details, of course. It was kind of funny when they came over to show support and try to intimidate me for her mistakes. As far as I am concerned, they can all get in a minivan and drive off a cliff and still I won't be sad. The whole family can go to hell. Update: I have bouts of depression, more like feeling sorry for myself, and exhilaration that she will be gone and someone else's nightmare. She says that she is no longer meeting up with the butcher and looks at me while saying this, sort of like all hopeful that I will forgive her or congratulate her for not continuing to screw the guy. She still could be, but I really have come to the conclusion that I don't give a crap. She is kind of like a puppy who wants praise for not pissing on the carpet. It's a weird characteristic. I was not going to be there alone while her side of the family were going to outnumber me. Plus, they did not know he was my attorney until I introduced him to them. Then it was all cricket sounds. It was great. Update: so, I was put in a boot so I can start walking around. It is still very painful, but I will continue to walk till it's bearable, then get out of the house and to light duty at work. I will do anything. I mean anything to get out of the house for a day. We have a counseling session Monday, and the only reason I am going is to show the courts my concern as a husband. I told my attorney that this is the dumbest thing to do, but he persisted, so I will go. What a waste. Anyway, she just sits in our family room waiting for me to come in and sit down so she can talk about us. Every time I get comfortable in my chair, she brings us up, which makes me have to get up and go back to my room or office. This is like a hostage situation. My friends and co-workers continue to come by at night to watch baseball or a movie, and they take up the whole family room, which makes my wife extremely uncomfortable and she leaves. I wish they can stay all the time, but I don't and never will make enough money to feed them. They are the best bunch of animal friends a person can have. Also, she now turns on her phone recorder every time I say something to her. This has been rectified by me not talking to her anymore. Bonus: she is like a coiled spring waiting to explode, but I don't know when. Final update. First, the marriage counselor. I met my wife at the therapist's office about 5 minutes late, and when I opened the door, the two were in a very deep conversation. I have to state that the therapist is my wife's therapist, so I went in with defenses up. So, I sat down and she lets my wife speak first, which was 5 minutes of what a jerk I am and have been the past months. Then the therapist and my wife go back and forth with her asking questions, and my wife just eviscerating me and all that I am. This went on for another 10 minutes before I was even included in this conversation. My wife's last comment, which was made through gut-wrenching sobs, which I knew was just a performance, was, "I just don't want you to be mad at me." At this time the therapist congratulated her in her courage to face me with her inner thoughts. Well, my inner thoughts were basically BS. So, after some thought, I stood up, told my wife that I don't want you to go away mad, I just want you to go away. I then got up, left and got a ride home. What a bunch of horse crap. Now I know there were times in my marriage where I was not so accommodating or nice or supportive, but I bet everyone in their marriage were not as well. All in all, I believe I gave my wife support with issues in her life, parents, school, work, holidays, but I am sure there were times I let her down by the level of commitment of my support. It went both ways, but this was a total waste of time. Secondly, the night before the therapist, I started to feel really bad, especially around the surgery scar. So, when my friend, roommate, picked me up from the therapist's office, he said I looked like death and was really worried. He said basically, "I am taking you to the ER because I don't want you to die in my car." So, I went and it was determined that I had some type of infection from the surgery. This put me in the hospital for a week and in a recovery center for 10 days. I have never felt that sick in my whole life. To spare all the medical details, I was able to go home for further recovery. My medical plan allowed for a nurse to come by my house once a day till she was no longer needed. So, it was during this home convalescence that my buddy staying in my basement told me that when I fell asleep, my wife would head off the butcher's house and return in the early morning. He knew this because he followed her every night. To tell the truth, even though it pissed me off, I was already letting go to where I told her I knew where she went at night and to just stay there. She was quite angry at this and tried to tell me she just went to talk to him. Now you might have to hit me with the stick once, but not twice. She did not go. Third, I hate to admit this, but my buddy and I made living at home for her a living hell for a month, but she would not go. Always telling me that we could still salvage the marriage, blah, blah, blah. Well, the breaking point was the last mediation meeting where most of her demands fell on deaf ears. However, she will get alimony, the SUV and some of my retirement. I get my house, 2/3 of my retirement, the sports car, and get rid of her. All I have to do now is keep my mouth shut, don't anger anyone, and just stay in my happy place. Now there were other negotiated items we went through, but nothing interesting. So, the waiting game started. Finally, only 11 days later, the judge signed off on the paperwork, posted it with the clerk of the court, and I am single again. Ironically, she is now living with the butcher. I pass his house every day when I go to work and back and give a bit wave and smile when I see one or both of them outside. I called her father and told him that I am no longer married to his princess and expressed my desire for him to have a good day. So, no, I am still recovering from my injury without the stress of having to see or listen to her cackling every night. What a relief. I am looking at nothing but blue skies and sunshine in my future. As a post note, one of the administrative women heard that I still needed help with cooking and some household things, and she has graciously dropped by on several occasions with food and groceries. She is very attractive, in my eyes anyway, and has been a godsend. In fact, her appearances have become more common over the weeks. We sit and eat dinner while talking for hours at a time. It really does appear that life does go on, no matter how long it takes. Oh, I still have the damn dog. But during my convalescence we seem to make a bond, so I am keeping the damn dog. My comment: a personal counselor should never, repeat never, be used as a marriage counselor. An MC should be someone that neither party even remotely knows and should come with impeccable credentials. I'm not surprised in the least your ex has shacked up with Meat Boy. She has no place to go, so his house will do, until another one comes along. Glad you got the dog, and a new dinner companion. Story 2. Hubs and are both in second marriages with no previous children. We have 2 boys together, 5 and 8, and have been married for 10 years. When I met the Hubs, he was active in the military, and since he retired, he's never been the same. Through the years I've 100% supported him financially. He's tried college twice and dropped out. I've even paid for daycare when my kids were small because he also was too overwhelmed with caring for them while I worked. I've tried to be sensitive to how difficult it is to separate from the military. He tried counseling about 3 years ago when I had enough with his serious bouts of depression. It got better and then got really bad again. Memorial Day of 2018 we separated. After giving him lots of chances and advance warning, I told him I'd tried and suggested everything and he needed to get help. We did marriage counseling. He got a job, and after 7 months of separation, I allowed him back in January of 2019. Well, he quit his job in March. It was too stressful and the hours were crazy, they were, but he promised me he'd drive Uber and get counseling and get his medications adjusted. Fast forward. We just got back from a great 2-week vacation and he is back into a deep depressive state because he just cannot cope with reality. I love him, but I don't know what else I can try. I have a great job and make really good money, and I'm very fortunate we don't need a second income. I never imagined that I'd be with someone who is so unproductive and unable to put one foot in front of the other and just function. On top of it, he takes it out on the kids for the slightest thing, and I don't know if there is anything else out there I can or should try. I feel like there isn't anything left to say or try. I plan on calling a divorce attorney to educate myself on the mechanics of the situation. Have any of you been in a situation similar? I still love him and always will, but I can't hold him up and the kids and everything else anymore. I really worry about what will become of him. I worry about the kids and what they will think. My family was not happy that I took him back to begin with, but I was, and still am, really trying hard to do the right thing. We don't know the root cause of his depression. He never stays in counseling long enough to explore that. He has family history of it from both of his parents. He does not have a drinking problem. When we met, I had no idea that he had any of this family history, and he showed no signs of depression. In the military, he was in the Coast Guard and loved it. He doesn't draw a pension but will have full retirement benefits kick in when he turns 65. He deferred it because he finished his last 4 years as a reservist to finish his 20. If I divorced him, he'd be able to minimally support himself if he were to get some sort of job. He isn't a big spender. I'd give him the car I bought him. I wouldn't ask him for child support. I don't need it. I don't want his retirement either. When I let him back in, he was still working at the job he'd gotten during our separation. He quit a few months after I took him back. I'd be 100% fine with him being a stay-at-home dad. I've told him this, but as we all know, that's really a job. I don't want to have to wonder what's been accomplished while the kids are at school all day, other than maybe 1 to 2 chores max. And that's on a good day. I work from home a lot when I'm not on the road traveling, and it's very little initiative. I'm totally open to him being a stay-at-home dad. The problem is he really struggles with that. Staying at home with the kids is not for him, and he's admitted as much. I trust him with the kids in the way that I know he loves them and would never physically harm them at all. It's more that it's hard to parent when you're all depressed, and that's when I feel it's not fair to the kids, and when I step in to ensure they're having their emotional needs met. He was actually way more plugged in as a dad when we were separated, and I suspect it's because he didn't have to be dad all the time. He doesn't offer an excuse. It's a fizzle. Like the minute the first scheduling conflict comes up with a therapist, he needs to schedule the next app and just never picks it back up. What does he do all day? He does the grocery shopping. He loves running errands. He also does the laundry and I'd say about 50% of the dinners, sometimes more if my work schedule is hectic. He also pays the bills. No deep cleaning, no floors, no tidying, picking up bathrooms, etc. It either goes undone or I have to do it or get after him to do it. I refuse to get a housekeeper. Plants are dead cause he can't think to water them. Landscaping is done for us through our HOA. So, no yard work, etc. I know that's next, but I'm avoiding what will come after that, which is all the I'm sorry and same cycles as before. It was a choice. He was stationed in California and I was in Texas, and he was getting disillusioned with the Coast Guard. He moved and joined the Air Force Reserves. Spent most of the 4 years as active reserve. Well, late afternoon he brought up that his sister had told his mother that he was back in a depressive state. She was visiting with us for a week. I told him that I can't keep living like this. He told me that he had stopped taking his meds for 3 weeks, and to not be angry with him that he's taking his meds again and that he is trying. And what if he is like this for the rest of his life? That he doesn't want to be like this. It was an unresolved sort of conversation because I was just mad that he had gotten off of his meds. I told him that I can't keep going through this cycle, and he made promises to me that he hasn't been able to keep, and how am I supposed to feel hopeful anymore because he does one thing that he shouldn't have stopped doing in the first place. Yes, and today he's been trying to be Mr. Productive and Mr. Good Mood. I find that I can't keep being empathetic anymore, and that in turn makes me feel guilty. He even went to the gym. Why do I feel guilty that I feel nothing about these gestures anymore? On one hand, I think that in and of itself is giving me a clear message that I don't have romantic feelings anymore towards him, as I feel betrayed and deceived by his repeated promises. On the other hand, is the whole death do us part guilt that is no joke. I feel like I'm back to square one with looking for a good Addie, but will resume the search again Monday. A month later, well, after some very real physical manifestations of stress, I finally told him this week that it's over. He was devastated. Says that he's been doing the IC, taking his medication, but it's too late. I've spent years watching him spiral and doing just nothing, and it's fundamentally altered how I feel about him and how I view him. I told my family and his as well because I know they will need to help him put one foot in front of the other. Last day and a half have been me giving him some space to come to grips with all of this, and I'm trying to find an attorney. It all feels so surreal, but I felt a huge relief to finally get this off of my chest. Anyways, now to actually begin to do the hard work and be just another single cat lady with kids. Awesome, right? I'll always be rooting for him to conquer his demons for his own sake and for the sake of the kids. I just can't be part of it anymore. I've carried the majority of the load and 100% of the financial load, and I started to break down, which cannot happen. Not when I have littles counting on me. These recent efforts to me are not really what I would see as a change because it's been a pattern of starts and stops and starts and stops with the rest of us along for the ride. I knew in my heart of hearts that I'd tried everything I could and lasted as long as I could when those feelings of hope didn't surface when he said he would be going back on meds, and I hate to admit it, but I felt just unmoved by it all. Main concern is for the kids who adore their dad and helping them be reassured that we both still love them. It breaks my heart thinking that they will physically be seeing their dad less often than they are used to. I cannot suffer another mental breakdown because then who will the kids have? I've given him a few days to process all of this, but I'm anxious to move forward. Trying to get time with an Addie who a good fit is so I can go ahead and file. Do most couples decide when to move out? I'm the one that is going to end up paying out in this divorce and would rather we agree on what we can before attorneys go to town. I'd like to know what his plans are, but I'm 99% sure that he has no plans and will want me to tell him his options. So, yesterday I sent him an email letting him know that he needs to start thinking about where to live, and asked him today if he'd gotten it, and he said yes, shook his head and went back to bed. How do I handle this? He is 100% dependent on my co-signing for an apartment, house or whatever until he gets on his feet, but he is in such a fog he just can't decide anything about what is next. I want to stay in the house with the kids since I provide 100% of the finances into the household. Lawyer is the one who said I'm going to need to do this, that he is going to be treated like a stay-at-home mom who has relied on her husband to support her all of those years, won't have the established job history, and judge won't be too empathetic to him getting the boot without a means to provide himself with housing right out of the gate, which is fine, whatever. I'm just wanting to see him actually start looking at places and accepting that this is going to happen. Dream on, right? Attorney is in agreement that as much as I can get him to agree to the better for everyone. If the Addie has to chase him, going to be way more expensive than me driving him. But it may come to that. I'm still resolute. Lord knows it's taken me years to get here. But dealing with his deer in the headlights shock is very frustrating. He told me today that I hold all the cards and that he is still in denial. He doesn't know how he is going to live. I calmly told him that he will have money to live and to get a new start, and he said that I'm trying to buy him off. Just venting. Deep breaths. I have to keep reminding myself that I'm not responsible for him. I wanted to show him a house that he'd be able to afford post-settlement, and he looks at me and says I don't know the first thing about home ownership. Really, this is our third house together. Like, whose fault is that? I've decided now that I'm not going to put him into a house. He will go into an apartment, which I'm sure he will complain about. I also want to kick my own rear end for enabling this crap for so long. Can you be angry with someone and feel sorry for them at the same time? It's really making me realize that every single thing that I'd outlined clearly, he just chose to not process and assimilate. I also went through that when we did MC last year. I walked away after every sessions wondering why I was there doing work he needed to be doing on his own. I think it would be somewhat easier if I was the one leaving the house. But since I'm staying and he is the one who needs to go, getting a person who is stuck to move and take action is not easy. If he could hear my inner monologue, it would crush him. And I don't want to be mean, I'm just so tired. So tired. Maybe I am better off just getting everything set up and telling him, here you go, sign here. Then, I feel every time I post here, I need to just have a disclaimer that I'm venting. Big update here. Yesterday STBX said he was ready to talk about the deed. To cut to the chase, he agreed to everything that I laid out. Even better, he is going to move into a condo that I own for 6 months until one that he and his mother own outright is vacated. Then he will move there. I'm going to get his signature on an Excel doc that I have to outline all of this in the interim. He says we can file as agreed and just get an addie to look over the final docs. I'm cautiously optimistic and will file as soon as I get back into town. I'm not out of the woods yet, but it's as good as a conversation as we could have had. He says when it comes to the kids, he wants me to know he isn't going to fight me on that either. He wants us to get along as friends for their sake. We actually went to dinner yesterday after hashing all of this out, and I drove him to see the condo since he'd never been before, and went home and back to our rooms. It was such a relief. I slept well for the first time in a long time. My comment: don't get too worked up yet though. I would guess that it is likely he is working up some advantage scheme in his head. After all, doesn't everyone in divorce? He is who he is and that won't change. Stay out of the white knight syndrome and let him solve his own problems. You can never fix this.